In the 16th century, one city stood between Europe, Asia, and Africa. Its markets were filled with spices from the east. Its docks were crowded with ships from the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Its palaces looked across the waters where continents almost touched. And from this city, one ruler watched the world like a chessboard. His name was Suleiman. To Europeans, he became known as Suleiman the Magnificent. To his own people, he was remembered as Suleiman the Lawgiver. But to the kings, emperors, knights, diplomats, and soldiers of his time, he was something even more frightening. He was the ruler of an empire that seemed impossible to stop. By the time Suleiman came to power in 1520, the Ottomans had already changed history forever. They had taken Constantinople, the ancient capital of the Byzantine Empire. They had turned it into Istanbul, the beating heart of a new imperial world. They had expanded across Anatolia, the Balkans, the Eastern Mediterranean, Syria, Egypt, and the holy cities of Islam. But under Suleiman, the Ottoman Empire did not simply remain powerful. It reached for something greater. It pushed into Central Europe. It challenged the Habsburgs. It fought the Safavids in the east. It dominated key sea routes. It transformed Istanbul into one of the greatest cities on earth. And for nearly half a century, the question facing Europe was not whether the Ottomans were powerful. The question was how far they would go. Suleiman inherited an empire that was already enormous. His father, Selim I, had expanded Ottoman power dramatically. He conquered the Mamluk Sultanate, bringing Syria, Egypt, and the holy cities of Mecca and Medina under Ottoman authority. This meant that when Suleiman became sultan, he was not starting from weakness. He was standing on top of a mountain of power. But power is dangerous. A ruler who inherits a great empire can either protect it carefully or lose it quickly. Suleiman chose a third path. He expanded it. He was young when he came to the throne, but he understood something that many rulers forget. An empire does not rule only by sitting in palaces. It rules by showing that its armies can move, its laws can organize, its roads can connect, its ships can sail, and its capital can impress everyone who enters it. So Suleiman began his reign not with hesitation, but with movement. His first great target was Belgrade. Belgrade was not just another city, it was a gate. For years, it had stood as a fortress blocking Ottoman expansion deeper into Europe. If the Ottomans wanted to move into Hungary and threaten the heart of Central Europe, Belgrade had to fall. In 1521, Suleiman attacked. The city resisted, but it could not hold. When Belgrade fell, the balance of power in southeastern Europe shifted. A gate had opened. The road toward Hungary was now more vulnerable than ever before, and Suleiman was only beginning. 1 year later, he turned his attention to another target: Rhodes. Rhodes was controlled by the Knights Hospitaller, a Christian military order that had long been a problem for Ottoman shipping. From the island, the Knights could threaten Muslim pilgrims and Ottoman trade routes in the Eastern Mediterranean. To Suleiman, Rhodes was more than a military problem. It was a symbol. As long as Rhodes resisted, Ottoman control of the Eastern Mediterranean was incomplete. In 1522, Suleiman launched a massive campaign against the island. The siege was brutal and difficult. The defenders were experienced, the walls were strong, the sea protected them. But Suleiman had patience, resources, and overwhelming force. After months of fighting, Rhodes surrendered. The Knights were allowed to leave, the island became Ottoman, and the Eastern Mediterranean became more securely tied to Istanbul. In just the first years of his reign, Suleiman had taken Belgrade and Rhodes. One was the gate to Central Europe. The other was a key to the sea. The message was clear. This new sultan was not merely preserving the empire of his father. He was building the empire of his own age. But Suleiman's greatest test in Europe came in 1526. The Kingdom of Hungary was one of the major powers standing between the Ottoman Empire and Central Europe. For generations, Hungary had been a shield. But in the early 16th century, Europe was divided. The two armies met at Mohacs. The battle was short. The result was devastating. The Hungarian army was crushed. King Louis II of Hungary died while fleeing the battlefield. In a single day, the military strength of medieval Hungary was broken. This was one of the great turning points of European history. Before Mohacs, Hungary stood as a barrier. After Mohacs, Hungary became a battlefield. The Hungarian army was crushed. King Louis II of Hungary died while fleeing the battlefield. In a single day, the military strength of medieval Hungary was broken. This was one of the great turning points of European history. Before Mohacs, Hungary stood as a barrier. After Mohacs, Hungary became a battlefield. Suleiman had not just won a battle, he had torn open the political map of Europe. This is where the story becomes even larger, because Suleiman was not only fighting small kingdoms on the edge of Europe, he was now facing the Habsburgs, one of the most powerful dynasties in the world. The Habsburgs controlled vast territories in Europe. They were connected to the Holy Roman Empire. Their ruler, Charles V, was one of the most powerful Christian monarchs of the age. So when Suleiman pushed toward Vienna in 1529, the world watched. Vienna was not just a city, it was a symbol. If Vienna fell, the road into the heart of Europe would look terrifyingly open. In 1529, Ottoman forces reached the city. The siege of Vienna became one of the most famous moments of Suleiman's reign. The Ottomans had marched far. The weather was difficult. Supply lines were stretched. The city resisted. And Vienna did not fall. For Europe, this became a moment of survival. For the Ottomans, it was not the end of power. It was a reminder that even the strongest empire had limits. But even failure at Vienna showed something extraordinary. The Ottoman army had reached the gates of one of Europe's most important cities. Few empires in history could project power so far, and even fewer could do it while also fighting across Asia and the Mediterranean. This is what made Suleiman's empire so remarkable. It was not powerful in only one direction. It was powerful in many directions at once. In Europe, it fought Hungary and threatened Vienna. In the Mediterranean, it challenged naval powers. In the east, it fought the Safavids. In the Arab lands, it controlled Syria, Egypt, Iraq, and the Holy Cities. In North Africa, Ottoman influence expanded. From the Balkans to Baghdad, from the Red Sea to the Danube, the Ottoman world stretched across the meeting point of 3 continents. This was not just a kingdom, it was a world system. And at the center of that system was Istanbul. Istanbul in Suleiman's time was one of the greatest cities on earth. It had once been Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. For more than 1,000 years, it had been the jewel of the Eastern Roman world. When the Ottomans captured it in 1453, they inherited not only a city, but a legend. Under Suleiman, that legend was remade. Istanbul became the imperial center of a Muslim world empire. It was a city of palaces, mosques, courts, markets, schools, workshops, and docks. It connected the old Roman world to the Islamic world. It connected soldiers, scholars, merchants, architects, sailors, judges, and poets. In this city, power was not only measured by armies, it was measured by stone, law, art, and ceremony. When foreign ambassadors entered the Ottoman court, they were meant to feel small. They saw order, they saw wealth, they saw discipline, they saw a ruler whose empire could speak many languages, govern many peoples, and command armies across continents. This was why Suleiman was called Magnificent, not only because he conquered, but because his empire looked magnificent. But inside the Ottoman world, Suleiman was remembered by another title, the lawgiver. This matters, because if you only tell the story of Suleiman as a conqueror, you miss half of his power. Conquest can win land, but law keeps it. The Ottoman Empire contained many peoples, languages, religions, and traditions. Muslims, Christians, Jews, Turks, Arabs, Greeks, and many others. No ruler could govern such a vast empire by force alone. Suleiman worked to organize and refine the laws of the empire. He helped shape the imperial legal system that dealt with taxation, administration, and state order. This is why many remembered him as Kanuni, the lawgiver. In the West, people admired the spectacle. In the East, many remembered the structure. And that structure helped the empire endure long after Suleiman's death. But Suleiman's world was not perfect. Behind the beauty of Istanbul and the glory of conquest, there were tensions. The empire depended on constant military success. The frontier in Hungary was expensive and unstable. Even inside Suleiman's own family, politics could be deadly. The Ottoman succession system created fear because princes could become rivals. The struggle for power did not wait until a sultan died. It lived inside the palace. The ruler who brought the empire to its height also lived in a world where greatness demanded terrible choices. His reign was filled with triumph, but also suspicion, court politics, and family tragedy. One of the most important figures of Suleiman's age was not a general on a battlefield, but an architect. His name was Mimar Sinan. Sinan became the greatest architect of the Ottoman classical age. Under Suleiman and his successors, he helped shape the visual identity of the empire. His buildings were not just places of worship. They were statements of civilization. The greatest symbol of Suleiman's reign in stone is the Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul. Built on one of the city's hills, it dominates the skyline. Its dome, courtyards and minarets were designed to express order, balance, faith and imperial confidence. A mosque like this was not only a religious building, it included schools, kitchens and social institutions. It showed that the empire could conquer with armies, but also build with stone. And in history, that matters, because armies can terrify a generation. Architecture can speak for centuries. This is why Suleiman's age belongs in a series about history's most powerful civilizations. Power is not only about battles, it is about how much of the world it can organize. The Ottoman Empire under Suleiman controlled major trade routes. It ruled across 3 continents, it fought the strongest dynasties, it made Istanbul one of the world's great capitals. It produced a golden age of art, architecture, law and literature. At its height, the Ottoman Empire was not on the edge of world history. It was one of the centers of world history. But every great empire has a question hidden inside it. What happens when expansion slows? As the years passed, the empire faced harder limits. The Habsburgs did not disappear. The Safavids did not collapse. The empire was still powerful, but power became more expensive. And Suleiman himself grew old. In 1566, near the end of his life, he went on campaign again in Hungary. He was already elderly. His body was weaker, but his identity remained tied to movement and command. During the campaign at Sigetvar, Suleiman died. The empire kept his death secret for a time so that the army would not fall into disorder. The greatest sultan of the Golden Age dying near the battlefield, while his officials tried to keep the machinery of empire moving. Even in death, the empire needed the image of Suleiman to remain alive. When Suleiman died in 1566, the Ottoman Empire did not collapse. It remained one of the great powers for centuries. But his reign became the symbol of its highest age, the age when Ottoman armies shook Europe, the age when Istanbul became a world capital of politics, trade, law and art. Many rulers win battles, fewer build an age. So when we ask why this empire belongs among the most powerful civilizations, the answer is simple. Because it stood at the center of the known world. It connected continents. It threatened empires. It turned Istanbul into one of the greatest centers of the world. In the 16th century, if you stood in Istanbul and looked across the Bosporus, you were not standing at the edge of Europe. You were standing at the center of an empire that made Europe, Asia and Africa all look toward the same throne. That throne belonged to Suleiman the Magnificent, and for nearly half a century the world had to measure itself against him. That throne belonged to Suleiman the Magnificent, and for nearly half a century the world had to measure itself against him. This was the age when the Ottoman Empire threatened Europe, ruled across continents, and turned Istanbul into one of the greatest centers of the world.